2 weeks, this player was someone you would drop from your bench. This week, he's a top 5 starter at his position. Welcome to Fantasy Football Free for All. This is our Week 7 Thursday night preview. It is kind of one of those suspect Thursday night games. Eagles, Giants. Neither team is super exciting. The Eagles are coming off of just absolutely being decimated by injuries. We've got, for instance, another offensive lineman. We've got Zach Ertz, Malik Jackson, Miles Sanders. Those guys are the ones that are out. Ooh, that is not good for the Eagles. And then we have limited participants like Deshaun Jackson, Alshon Jeffrey, Lane Johnson, who's trending towards not being able to play. And Tavon Maddox is not really looking good, and Duke Riley isn't either. What this says is that Carson Wentz is a must start. He's going to have to carry the entire team on his shoulders. Boston Scott is going to be an okay running back, but the person that you are looking at in this game and being like, I got to get me some of that, is Carson Wentz. He has essentially willed the Eagles to being at least competitive in every game. Last week, he just hucked the ball up and threw it all over the field and made some plays. Now, it's possible that he gets some of his weapons back. With Fulgham and Ward being the two primaries of what receivers that he's had of the last few weeks, getting Alshon Jeffrey and Deshaun Jackson back could open up this offense even more, especially with that one-dimensional running attack from Boston Scott and CLEMENT. But it's I hate relying on kind of a one-dimensional pass attack. I do like the Philadelphia wide receivers this week. The Giants' secondary is nothing to be super scared about. They let people go up and down the field. Yes, their defense is a little more stout than it was in weeks 1 and 2, but it's still not a top 15 defense. So Travis Fulgham has had a score and at least 60 yards in the last 2 games. 2 games ago, he had over 150 yards. So he's clearly got a rapport with Carson Wentz. And I think that he is a wide receiver 2 this week. I know it's crazy to say somebody that we wasn't even in our top 100 going into the season is a wide receiver 2. But look at the production. Look what he is willing on these terrible teams. He is going to really have an impact. The other thing is, think what he did last week against the Ravens. The Ravens are widely considered to be in the top 5 defenses in the league, and he was a usable wide receiver. The Giants are not the Ravens. So if that happens, I got to get me a piece of that. I want that in my lineup. But put him in your flex position. Or your wide receiver 2 position. If the issue is with any uncertainty, you want to keep that flex open, but that's how you want to think about it. It's like, okay, I've got my wide receiver 1, my wide receiver 2, then Fulgham. For the running back position, Boston Scott and CLEMENT are the 2 backs that are going to see the most work. Boston Scott, people are really low on him because of his early season kind of dud, but you have to remember this team was in shambles. I think we'll know a lot more after this week's game. He's a better back than what he demonstrated earlier in the season. The team is better than what they demonstrated earlier in the season. I think that he is more likely to get you that 50 yards and a score, which is completely usable in most formats. CLEMENT is not worth playing. If Boston Scott goes down, obviously you could see a huge workload, but I think that all he can do is maybe vulture a carry in the end zone. The defense, you're not doing anything with this defense. This defense is a no-go. Yes, I know that the Giants' offense is bad, but this defense has the potential to make them look good. So get away from it. Don't even consider it. Now, On the Giants side, we have a couple of injuries, but they're much healthier than the Eagles. Darius Slayton is the only concern. He had that foot injury last week while catching just an absolute primo ball right in the end zone. He kind of ran off funny, and he had his foot went a little weird. But he was a limited participant this week, so I think he'll be good to go. Now, I much prefer Fulgham to Darius Slayton this week. Not because I think that the Eagles' defense is anything worth talking about. No, that's not it. It's just he's an explosive separation guy, and any injury can slow him down. He's maybe a flex. I would just rather have Fulgham if I have a choice. I think that he is also going to see a slight decrease in production because of the return of Sterling Shepard. Sterling Shepard is not somebody I'm rushing to put in my lineup, but he is somebody that I'm looking at after waivers have cleared to see if I can put him on my bench. Danny Dimes has done a pretty middling job up to this point, but he, like Carson Wentz, has had essentially no weapons. When Saquon Barkley went down, this team fell apart. And you're starting to see the rebuild. It's getting there piece by piece by piece. So I'm more interested in these pass catchers than I was in week 3. So consider a stash. But remember, we're halfway through the season. So you're only looking at players who have the potential to, like, boom for the rest of the season. And I think both Darius Slayton and Sterling Shepard could be those players as soon as they're healthy and they've gotten that rapport. Now, if you've got Daniel Jones and you're starting him, it's because you're in a desperation situation. You're likely in a 2-quarterback league. You've likely listened to a lot of kind of talking heads, and now you're stuck with him. He is not a QB1 or a QB2 in my belief. I much prefer Carson Wentz, obviously, because I think Carson Wentz is a top 5 quarterback this week. But I prefer Joe Burrow. I prefer Teddy Bridgewater. I mean, there's a long list that I prefer. He has some value with his legs. Last week he was almost the leading rusher on that team. So it's one of those things that I'm not recommending you start him. I think that he has, he always has the ability to kind of bump into that 19-20 fantasy point range. But given the quality and depth at quarterback, that's just not going to cut it. So don't go near him. Now, the running back situation. Devonta Freeman is starting to get there. He's starting to build up steam. He's starting to get those carries. I think that he will continue to do that, and if there is a game that he is going to get those carries, it's this week. Because you got to look at this defense, and it's just ravaged on the other side. But I don't know if he is ever going to be a starting running back for you. He is a positional week-to-week flex, and he's the best back on this team. Dion Lewis is just a PPR back, and he's not even a good PPR back. So, I mean, the only players that I'm starting with any sort of confidence, and it's like confidence, is Darius Slayton. I think this game is going to be interesting just because how decimated both teams are, and I think it will be a high-scoring affair. When I'm looking at who's going to win overall, the Eagles have the slight edge. Carson Wentz will have to carry this team on his back, but I think that he can do it. And, it's going to be an affair where I think there are going to be a lot of points scored. And I am looking at the over as well, just because both defenses are kind of terrible. So that concludes our Fantasy Football Free-For-All Week 7 Thursday night preview. Please like, comment, and subscribe.